it finally happened. After weeks of trying, I've finally gotten to see the Batman. Everything in the universe seemed to be trying to keep me from seeing this movie. I mean, it came out almost a month ago, and I I've been rooting so hard for Robert Pattinson's Batman to be great, because I mean I've loved him in The Lighthouse. I liked him in Tenet, and I mean for those that are very familiar with my channel, know how I feel about the Twilight movies. And even though he's great in this film, and I liked him in those other ones I just mentioned, he's still terrible in the Twilight films. But I don't think that that is entirely his fault. I think actors have to trust what they're given to work with. But I think Pattinson should deserves a lot of credit. Like, if you were unsure of this film because you couldn't see Pattinson as Batman, this film spends a lot of time with Batman. Like, I think this film spends more time with Batman than any other Batman films have ever done. Like, most Batman films will split the time between Batman and Bruce Wayne, or have Bruce Wayne mostly in the forefront. But I think that this film does a masterful job of making Pattinson's Batman a force to reckon with, and he says a lot by not saying anything. Like, his portrayal of Bruce Wayne is similar to that of Michael Keaton's. He's a reclusive billionaire. And I think I'm still partial to Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. Like, I think the idea of having him be a playboy that nobody would ever suspect of being Batman is a really fun and great idea. However, I don't think it works for Pattinson's Bruce Wayne to do anything like that. Like, I tried to picture him, doing the pool scene in Batman Begins that Bale did so well, and I just can't do it. Like, I think Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, which makes me appreciate Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne even more for being subtle, I think works. Like, I think both are great in their own way. But I think that if you were hesitant to see the film because of Pattinson taking the role, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think you should give it a chance, and that's all I'm going to say. I mean, it's really well directed, understatably so. I think I've only seen it once, and there's a lot to process. I mean, it's almost a 3-hour film, and there's a lot that happens. I think that if you're a Batman fan, you will be very pleased. Now, I would have liked them to have more fantasy elements, because that was what I was excited for with Ben Affleck's Batman, was to see him potentially take on villains like Deathstroke, Mr. Freeze, and have those villains get their due. And I just kind of cringe to think that they're going to cut off all these other great villains by keeping it grounded, even though there's a hallway scene and that's shown in the trailer where Batman gets shot by machine guns and just goes all off of his armor. And I don't know, like, maybe it'll be like season 1 of Arrow, where Arrow started out where it was like, we're going to be super realistic, but then they introduced Barry Allen in season 2, and then they introduced other fantasy elements throughout the rest of Arrow's run, and they had all those spin-offs. So maybe they could somewhat change their mind for Batman 2. And I hope they do, because I really want to see a good film with, like, Man-Bat. Like, it would be awesome to see a creature feature film in this universe, because I think it would work really, really well. But overall, I really liked it, and I think as far as, like, ranking it with the other Batman films, it's difficult. Like, I mean, I don't think The Dark Knight is ever going to be topped. However, I will say the one thing that this film does better than The Dark Knight is, I think, and a lot of Batman movies have done this, where the villain has outshined Batman or has been up to his level. But I think that in this film in particular, Batman is actually more interesting than the Riddler. Not that the Riddler's bad, like, I like how the Riddler is portrayed. I think overall I would probably, just after seeing it once, I think I would still put The Dark Knight and Batman Begins before this film. So I would probably put this as my third favorite Batman film, and then I would probably put Batman Returns, Batman 89, The Dark Knight Rises, Batman Forever, and then Batman and Robin. But overall, I think the film is really good. I think you should absolutely see it. I might do another video about it after I've seen it a couple more times, but I'm really happy with it. I'm sad that we're not getting to, that we probably won't get to see Pattinson's Batman go up against a good version of Mr. Freeze. Like, I don't want an Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Mr. Freeze to get introduced to this world. Like, I want that character to be taken seriously because Mr. Freeze is probably my favorite Batman villain. And I think what I'm about to say might be a spoiler. So if you don't want the film spoiled for you, please check out, go see the film, or if you're wanting to wait for it, go rent it once it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. But I will say this, for those that have seen it, and I'd be curious to see who feels the same, I don't want Joker. Like, I'm done with Joker. I think, and I've seen the deleted scene, and I think the guy is actually pretty good. It's not that I hate the performance. I just want, there's more Batman villains than just the Joker. Like, I'm glad that the Riddler got his due, because all we've had are the Adam West Riddler, which I actually think was really good for its time, and the Jim Carrey Riddler, which is fun in its own right, and I like him better in the film than I do Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. I think Tommy Lee Jones is awful in Batman Forever, but I think Jim Carrey, as for what they were going for with the Riddler, was actually pretty good. But Paul Dano as the Riddler was great. But I don't want a Joker. I'm fine with him making a cameo appearance, but I don't want him to be the main villain in the next film. I think if it was up to me, I think a creature feature would be like the best case scenario. But if they're going to stay with more realistic Batman villains, I mean, I guess you could go with Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. But I mean, we just recently saw those guys. I think that I would really love to see characters that haven't been adapted before. Like, and I'll repeat it again, I think Man-Bat would be really cool. But, I mean, it would be interesting to see Batman villains that haven't gotten to be adapted at all. And I think maybe even Hush would be cool. I mean, if they're going to go from... Because I think another thing this film did really well was to paint Bruce's parents as not perfect people. Like, they're not bad, but this is the first film to, like, put his family underneath the microscope and have Batman question what he's doing. So I think bringing Hush into that would be a interesting way to do it. Again, I think that Pattinson's portrayal as Batman and his growth throughout the film and becoming a symbol of hope is a very different idea to go with Batman, because I don't know if, I mean, they did that a little bit in the Nolan trilogy. Like, there were cops and some citizens that saw Batman as a symbol of hope and justice. But I just love the shot of, like, Batman helping people out of the rubble and holding on to that woman's hand right before she is drawn up into the helicopter. Like, I loved that scene. And I think that could be really interesting to toy with, especially with how tormented Pattinson's Bruce is. And I honestly got teared up with the Alfred scene, because I thought they were going to kill Alfred. Like, I honestly thought that they were going to go there. And I was just like, I was thinking about the last conversation they had where Bruce is like, Alfred, you're not a Wayne. But Alfred is family to Bruce. And he has been in every single adaptation. And you could tell, like, after he says it and Alfred walks away, that Bruce regrets saying it. Because, I mean, Alfred is Bruce's heart. Like, that's his conscience. I think Alfred has, in, like, every film adaptation, has been what keeps Bruce from going over the edge. Like, if Batman went out and killed somebody, he wouldn't be able to look Alfred in the eye. Like, I think that is what his moral compass is. And, I mean, Alfred is probably the best father figure that Bruce could have hoped for after the terrible things that happened to him. And this film did leave me wanting more. Like, I wanted to see more of Alfred. Like, he didn't feel like Alfred was... While Alfred was important, I didn't feel like there was a lot of scenes with him, and I don't know how they would have incorporated him more. Um, and I was also curious about Gordon and Batman's relationship because Gordon sticks his neck out for Batman a lot in this film. Like there are scenes where the cops are about ready to arrest this guy for being on a crime scene, and Gordon straight up shoots them down, figuratively speaking. And I would have loved to know like what has Batman and Gordon been doing together the past 2 years. And I didn't never think that somebody would come close to Gary Oldman's Gordon because Gary Oldman's Gordon was like top tier Gordon, but Jeffrey Wright is pretty damn close. Like they're neck and neck for my favorite Gordon now. And you know I think Gordon is I think that yeah, I think that the Gordon from the Dark Knight trilogy will always remain my favorite. But Jeffrey Wright is I mean, he could end up changing my mind depending on what they do with the next couple of sequels. And I would love to see Pattinson play Batman for a while, like a long time, like to the point where we get a Batman film and he's, you know, about Ben Affleck's age, where he's a broken down Batman and he's dealing with what it's like to be Batman as who's been at it for 20 years. I think that would be very interesting, and that was something that I'm sad that we're probably not going to see because I found that very interesting about Affleck's Batman. But I've gone on far too long. Again, comment below, let me know what you thought of the Batman film, and it's been a while since I've made a vlog, and I'm hoping to get back more into the swing of things. I appreciate you watching, and for those that have stuck around, I have some announcements coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.